I don't necessarily think of myself as an entrepreneur first. Maybe I think of myself as an explorer first. And entrepreneurship is the best vehicle to allow me to explore things I'm curious about.
In this episode of Re.Vert Ventures, we speak with John Metcalf, founder of Upgraded, the leading tech subscription service in the US focusing on MacBooks. Based in Austin, we hear John's story from childhood to being self-employed to full-time founder and everything in between, culminating in John creating a platform enabling a new model for device ownership and creating a scalable take-back program for one of the leading consumer electronic brands in the world, furthering the circular economy in the tech space. We learn about his journey from the US to Asia to Europe, and the lessons he's learned from starting businesses in each of these distinct cultures. We get transparent about the unit economics that allow Upgraded to work and the environmental impact that leasing unlocks. This is a great case study for those thinking differently about distribution, ownership, and impact. Enjoy. Well, John, again, I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us at Re.Vert Ventures. This is an exciting interview because your business is at the crossroads of many interesting components all in one. But before we jump into the business and the sustainability of Upgraded, I'd love to understand a little bit more about you and how you got to the business of Upgraded.
Yeah. I was born in Bulverde, Texas, or just north of San Antonio. I'll do the quick version of this is that I was homeschooled, had a computer at my house the whole time, so I spent a lot of time hanging out there. I had diskettes in a Velveeta cheese box that had lots of games on them, and those would be taken away between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. And so if I wanted to use the computer, I had to do something that was kind of, quote, productive. So that meant hanging out a lot of time in BASIC or Logic, which is like the programming language in the early 90s. And then went to the University of Texas, studied computer science, and I actually have a degree in advertising. I started as computer science, and then went over to that and started a co-working space in Austin when I was an undergrad. 2 years before WeWork, we just thought that it would be a group of freelancers, and I thought that it would be amazing to have a shared space for us, and we put that together. That took me to Shanghai to go and start a space over there. I met some guys that were living in Shanghai at South by Southwest in 2009, and they were like, want to come help us start a co-working space? And that sounded like the coolest thing I could possibly do as a recent grad, 25 years old, I think. And then ended up starting a data analytics company while we were over there. That was, we were indexing every group buying deal in the world and selling that data to Groupon and others. And then I was a entrepreneur in residence at Re.Vert Ventures, which is a fintech focused fund. Almost started another company in Hong Kong, and decided I have to go to San Francisco to start my next thing because that's the place to be. And then was in San Francisco for a year, started Upgraded, actually joined some guys who started Upgraded a couple months before. And then we moved to Stockholm because our first customer was, it was indirectly Apple Sweden. Our first customer, Apple Sweden helped us get our first retail customer over there. And that kicked off Upgraded in 2016. I've been working on this company since then in a couple different iterations.
Interesting. What's interesting about your story, John, is that you really have not only started companies in different geographies and different countries and cultures, but in completely different industries. And I'm curious to know how that diversity has impacted your mindset around entrepreneurship or around, business in general, because that's not a lot of people get to have that exposure.
Well, I went to Asia because I was curious because I wanted, I don't necessarily think of myself as an entrepreneur first. Maybe I think of myself as an explorer first.
Mhm.
And entrepreneurship is the best vehicle to allow me to explore things I'm curious about. Being able to spend the majority of my 20s in Asia and the majority of my 30s in Europe was like a secondary goal, or maybe it was the primary goal. And wildly enough, the opportunities presented themselves. The world conspired to allow me to go and pursue those other interests at the same time.
Mm.
And so, and they actually were kind of in similar industries, just in the sense that the first company we were indexing group buying deals, so it was e-commerce related. We were seeing a lot, trying to tease out patterns, and then upgraded. There's a data element behind upgraded because we need to track the secondary market values of ideally of all consumer electronics.
Interesting. You talk about being an explorer and what you mentioned earlier about your childhood. It seems like that's something that you kind of have always been about. Is that a fair assumption? Can you speak more
Yeah.
to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I grew up in a unique way. My both of my parents ran a mechanic shop next to. I've often described it typically as a single wide mobile home next to a 2-car garage. And my parents homeschooled me, I think, because early in their 20s they were leaning on the hippie side of things, and so they weren't looking to do things the same way that everybody else was. And I think being homeschooled made me very autodidactic, meaning I just was really curious to learn things myself because I had a lot of free time. During the middle of the day, I'm home all by myself. All the kids are gone. My parents are there, but they're inside working. And so I spent a lot of time just hanging out. And my parents would allow me to uh, read a book for a week if that's what I wanted to do in my school time. So if I wanted to just read Ender's Game for 2 weeks straight or 1 week straight, I could do that. Or if I had a new math book that I was super excited about, even if it was this thick and it was for the whole year, sometimes I would just get on a kick and be interested in doing that the majority of the day. Uh,
That's
so
interesting. Yeah.
that's led me to just feel like I want to. The phrase that I typically use is that I want to explore experience all the world has to offer. And so I'm just finding ways to do that. And some of those things require money. Still have to have a solid income.
Yeah.
And so I've built companies or been a freelancer in between companies as a way to continue all of that exploration.
Was it an intentional decision to get into business or to start companies as a way to fund a specific lifestyle or to fund specific interest? Was that a natural sort of conclusion of your interest, or how did sort of getting into the position of I'm going to take the risk of starting a business come to be?
When I was an undergrad studying computer science, I learned how to make web pages and other things. And there were 2 gigs that I got when I was in undergrad that kicked me off into this direction. The first one was my older cousin worked at an art gallery, and she needed somebody to help install their Wi-Fi or like set up their Wi-Fi and printers. So okay, I'll come over and do that. And they had a quote from somebody else, and I don't know, they were charging $120 an hour. So they told me, well, how about we pay you $45 an hour? And we'll both feel like we're getting a good deal. And to me, I'm like, $45 an hour? I'm 20 years old. This is incredible. How do I do more of this? And then the next thing was that the husband of the gallery is called Laura Reynolds Gallery, and her husband is a hedge fund manager, and he said, "Okay, we need some help at our office, and then we need some help building a website that our LPs can log into to see the performance of their portfolio, and we want to be able to upload this Excel spreadsheet and produce a PDF or produce a dashboard for them." And so it kicked me into this direction of I just can build things and make money, and I can make way more money.
Yeah.
I can just make this money, which it wasn't the money. It's more of the freedom that creates, and the fun of doing that. And so when graduation was coming around, and everybody is in that time applying to Google or Facebook, I mean, still a lot of the same companies, Google, Facebook, or McKinsey, or something like that. I was like, I had another contract at that time, and I think I was making $2,500 or $3,000 a month on a retainer. And I was like, there's just no other path for me. I have this chance to go and be completely free. And with $3,000 a month as a 22-year-old, I'm doing great. And also, this is in 2006, 2007.
Totally.
And so there was no other path for me. I think about it sometimes. I have friends that went to work at Facebook and Google very early, and they are far more wealthy than I am. But there was no other path for me. Once I experienced that, and I had, grew up seeing my parents be entrepreneurs.
You bring up a really good point, and I'd love to ask. You've been a founder of different things for some time, yet at the same time, an entrepreneur's journey has its ups and many times its downs. And especially in your 20s, you get you graduate from college, your friends are getting these great jobs at Google and Apple and these high-paying consulting jobs, and things can start to feel like a little competition, right? When you're playing against sort of corporate players who are in a much more linear trajectory, you as an entrepreneur, your path is a lot more ups and downs. Tell me about those earlier years when maybe you saw the cushy life that some of these people had and you were comparing it to yourself. Was there any point of frustration or feeling of like, man, maybe I should take that route?
I never felt it. I feel more of it now.
Interesting.
If I go back then, I'm like, I'm building my own co-working space. I have side gigs building things for folks where I'm getting paid. I started at $45 an hour, and then I could do $110 an hour.
Yeah.
And now it's $350 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I remember when I moved to Shanghai to start the co-working space, my bank account had just crossed $50,000. And I was like, this is insane. And there's more money than my parents would have in their savings at that time. And so I just always felt on top of the world.
Nice.
in the sense that I had both. I had cash in my bank account, and I had a whole lot of freedom. And so that's why I never compared myself. And also, when you're starting out at big tech or consulting or banking, you're working nonstop. It's not super cush. That said, I would never discourage someone from going down that path, because what happens 15 years later is that work really, really compounds. And especially if you're in early at one of a very significant company, you can, it all becomes worth it. Where, the whatever wealth that I've accumulated is small relative to being a part of a company that is, worth hundreds of billions or something.
Sure.
But yeah, I never looked back. I
Mhm.
now feel like I really want Upgraded to succeed. I want it to be a big success because now I'm 40 and I'm not so much a explorer, just living in different cities. And the way to build a company up until, for me, just a few years ago, when I wanted to start having kids and things like that, was rent a big house. Everybody lives in it. You're hustling, you're having fun, and then you're taking trips to Thailand to go surfing,
Yeah.
on the weekends with your friends who are all working on the company together.
Yeah.
So I was building companies in a very fun way, but
Nice.
it's a little different now that I'm trying to experience more things that the world has to offer,
Mhm.
um, like having kids and, I don't know, being in this stable lifestyle.
Totally. Totally. No, I mean, there's just different chapters of life, and I think that certain
Yeah,
lifestyles fit best within those. And this isn't to put anyone in a box or anything of that nature. Just, you know, yeah, priorities change,
yeah,
desires change,
yeah.
and the realities of life, yeah, they evolve in that regard.
But I love to see the people who are working for Upgraded still. For example, our head of
Mhm.
growth, Ben,
Mhm.
was in Lisbon all of last month and all of September. This month he's in Italy, but he is still doing a phenomenal job at growth,
Mhm.
which is like his what he's measured on. We're still growing 20% a month, but
Nice.
he's having a fantastic time living in different places. And I love that we can create that kind of possibility for folks.
Just taking a step back, right? I love to sort of paint the bigger picture about Upgraded and about this business that you've created around a leasing model, a take back program. Can you elaborate a little bit more about Upgraded to our audience so that they understand a little bit more about the business and how did Upgraded come to be as a business model?
Um, Apple created this upgrade program model in
Mhm.
2015 with the iPhone upgrade program. And it's essentially pay monthly for a device, get a new one on a regular schedule. And um, maybe the easiest way to think about it is it's just like a car lease. You're just paying monthly, but they pull out a big chunk of what you're going to pay in residual value. They just pull it out of the loan. You don't have to pay for that, because as long as you give the device back, or you give the car back, you don't have to pay that, because when they get the device, get the car back, they know, okay, this is going to be worth
Mhm.
50% of MSRP. So Apple's program in 2015 was 0% interest,
Mhm.
and this is like where it's kind of hybrid. It's not a lease, it's not a subscription necessarily. It's kind of like this hybrid loan, but the program is, you spread the cost of the device over 24 months. But after you've made 12 payments, you've paid half of it, then you have the option to trade in you to upgrade. They'll send you a new device in the mail and an empty box to send your old device back. They'll cancel the remaining 12 payments, the 50%, the remaining 50%, and you'll start it all over again. So every year you just pay half of the value of the iPhone. And the reason that works is because on the secondary market, they can resell that iPhone for 65% of MSRP. So, if it was $1,000 device, they basically bought it back
Mhm.
from the consumer for $500, but out in the market, after it's been cleaned up and put in a new box, and there's some logistics cost. There's a cost to doing all that, to giving it a refurb, but you can go and sell it for slightly more, and so it makes sense. And we've started that program with MacBooks in the US. I always wanted that to exist, a MacBook upgrade program. So that was the first thing that we started with here. And it's done really, really well. People were already asking for it
Mhm.
on Reddit. And so we were able to go and say, it's here. And
Yeah.
as people have found out about it, we in the last 12 months, we went from 100,000 12 months ago in sales to $1 million in sales last month. So
Congratulations, that's huge. That's big,
it's hard to do that.
It makes sense with the product, and it makes sense with the demand for this type of device and the use case scenarios, right? It fits in, especially with sort of, a sharing economy, and of course the environmental impact of this. I mean, take back programs, refurbishment programs, buying used, etc. These are all things that should be applauded and pushed for.
Yeah.
But you go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just want to say that we're starting with brand new products, but the long-term goal is, I mean, I'm not trying to push people to get a new MacBook every year, a new phone every year.
Yeah.
I'm not contributing very well to the circular economy if I'm just like, buy new.
Yeah.
The whole point of that is we had to start somewhere. And so it makes sense to start with a luxury device. A brand new MacBook is like a luxury purchase. Most people are in a great position buying a used everything. Name your item: car,
agreed,
phone, MacBook.
Yes.
You're getting the best deal if you're buying one that's 2 or 3 years old. And so that's where we need to get to. We just started up here because we had to start with, we want to set our brand at a high level, but the goal is to begin selling those used devices, which I think is the broader market. And if we need inputs first, we need devices that are in our system so that we can start rotating them around from life to life, or person to person. And if we can do that as efficiently as possible, and not try to, we're not trying to like maximize how much we make between each jump. We're just trying to make sure that that device does jump.
Yeah.
And I can talk about the economics of that. So we partnered with a Apple reseller. I think that the number, it's probably something approximately this. There are 37 companies in the US who have an authorization to sell Apple devices to consumers. And there's an even smaller number, something like 11, who have the authorization to sell these devices online. And one of the companies that has that is Gator Tech, and they are a small store in Gainesville, Florida. And they've been operating for a long time, and so they have this authorization. So we partnered with them because it is nearly impossible to get a new authorization. I think the Apple quote was, "We haven't given one out since 2011." I don't think we'll see any more because Apple is not actively trying to allow more companies to sell to consumers. They're trying to reduce the number of companies that can sell to consumers because they now, as opposed to maybe 20 years ago, they have Apple stores everywhere. And that's where you make the highest margin, is by having people go either to apple.com or to an Apple store.
Totally.
So Gator Tech has the authorization to sell online, and they have the ability to buy new Apple products below MSRP. It makes sense. That's how they can make money. Apple gives them a commission. They buy them for a smaller, like a slightly below MSRP, and then based on their sales, they get another level. They get 90 days later, they get another commission from Apple. It's not very much. I won't say the specifics because Gator Tech is not allowed to say what those specifics are, but we can say it's slightly below MSRP. And I'll tell you the percentages. And then so Gator Tech shares some of that margin with us, and we spend every bit of it. The 3/4 of it we give to our lender, in order that our lender will give 75% of our customers 0% interest. So the 0% interest that anybody gets anywhere, but let's just talk specifically about Upgraded. If you get 0% interest, somebody is paying for it. It's not free.
Interesting.
So our margin, we give that to the lender, And in exchange, the lender says, great, you've given us this, I'll use a round number, you've given us 10% of the device's value. So if it's $1,000 device, we give the lender $100. And now they say, great, we've made our money on this customer. And we're willing to give them 0% interest, which is risky because maybe they don't pay.
Mm-hmm.
But we're willing to give that person 0% interest. And Affirm, who is our lender, does not have any late fees. So there's no way for them to make more money. They don't have late fees, and they will allow you to be late up to 90 days before they send you to, I don't even know what they do. They send you to, I guess they send you to, they probably sell your debt to collections, or they report it to a credit agency. They are really, really customer friendly. But yeah, that's how they make their money. And the reason we wanted to do that, we don't make any more money when people do have an interest rate. So
because all that money goes to Affirm.
Yeah, all that money goes to Affirm. We only make the money that GatorTech shares with us.
Interesting.
And so we're buying down the interest rate on behalf of our customers. And then the rest of the money, we just spend on marketing. We just spend on letting people know about us.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh, it's an interesting model because what it sounds like is that partnerships are the key to how your system works, because you're not working directly with Apple. You're working with one of Apple's authorized affiliates. Mm-hmm. And you're leveraging that relationship to get access to the devices that are then you put into the system that you are managing between these different players. How did Apple Sweden get involved in this? How does the Nordic countries play into the story?
That's a totally different iteration of Upgraded. We originally went to Sweden to help create the platform for Apple retailers there to offer sell devices on upgrade programs or sell devices on subscriptions.
Mm-hmm.
And we orchestrate everything in the background. So their components of our program, or the one in Sweden, are there's a lender. That lender needs to be integrated into a point of sale or a website, so that when you I type in John Metcalf, the APIs go to the lender. The lender says yes or no. It comes back, lets them go to the next step. And then there's a connection to the retail point of sale or their ERP to say, one device is being shipped to John, reduce that number from the ERP, book it as we're going to get paid from the lender 30 days later or 15 days later. And then there's so that's kind of the point of sale. Then there's all of the messaging around, hey, welcome to the program. This is how it works. 12 months later, you might get a happy birthday to your device. Remember, you're going to be eligible to upgrade after you've made 24 payments or whatever the schedule they're on. And then there's the orchestration of sending out a box, send the empty box, send the new device to their house. Okay, the device comes back, it goes to a third party. We never touch a device. We only orchestrate everything. Okay. We're just software plugging all the components in, integrating everything in order to make this whole program work seamlessly.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
So those are all the sending emails, integrating with the bank, the buyback companies, the logistics companies. We integrate all of that. And in the Nordics, we have been doing that since 2016 with one of the largest electronics retailers there. And we decided about 2 years ago that program had been successful, it was profitable, and we had saved some money, and we decided we would invest it into the US to launch our own offering. And that's when we got the domain getupgraded.com, and we started working on this, and we launched about a year ago. It's so important to start with distribution in mind. If you have any type of distribution advantage when you're building a business, then that's more money. That's more money that you don't have to give to Google or Facebook. Yeah.
Totally, totally. You basically built out this model successfully in the Nordics and Sweden, and then are going back to the largest economy, effectively,
Mhm.
and trying to replicate that model somewhat way here. How has that been, and what type of lessons have you learned along this way?
A lot. I would say that a lot. There are a lot of cases where things are developed in small countries, like Spotify in Sweden or Klarna in Sweden. There's some things that you can do in small countries very efficiently, um, to to get everybody to know in the Sweden is 10 million people, to
Yeah.
get everybody to know about this product, or to change legislation in a way that is really helpful for you. That said, there are other models, of course, like an Uber that
Mm-hmm.
started in the US and then went
Everywhere.
everywhere else. Uh,
Touche.
I will give, having started my last two companies outside the US, Demand Analytics and then Upgraded, I give the biggest props to I think it's right around 50% of the companies on the S&P 500 who are started by non-Americans, who are started by immigrants. It is the hardest thing. Building a company outside of your home country
Yeah.
is extremely hard. And
Starting a company is extremely hard.
starting,
Starting a company outside of your own culture is extra hard.
yes.
Totally.
And so it, we've just been doing this for, a little over a year in the US, and I feel like it's a lot easier. I mean,
Okay.
it's probably the benefit of the US,
Yeah.
but it's also just, this is my home country, and there are little advantages that I have where I went to high school with somebody who I can call on, or I just understand legal documents totally clearly because
Yeah.
they're in my native language.
Yeah.
It is a lot easier, and
Mhm.
the economy in or the population of the US is just giant. And so, I'm like, oh, we did 1 million in sales. We have in our like tracker, monthly tracking doc and forecast, we have a percentage of how many MacBooks do we believe were sold in the US that month, and what percentage are we? And we are the smallest percent. It's Apple sells
Humbling.
14. Apple sells 14. This is my estimate. They
Mhm.
sell 14,000 MacBooks a day just in the US, just to consumers.
Jeez.
So when we sell, when we sell 250, it's like, this is nothing in a month.
Yeah.
This is nothing. Or
Yeah.
however many we sell, 350, 400.
Soon to be more. Going into the discussion around circularity, right, and take back programs, how do you see circularity or take back programs received from the consumers? Do you see that as something that really drives them to get upgraded, or do you see sort of the financial value proposition that you guys propose as the key driver in this? And where does circularity or sustainability fall within that?
In Europe, it is, the trend of circularity has really caught on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it ever will in the US, because people are more fearful, maybe probably rightly so, of greenwashing, of saying things are, this is so good for the environment or whatever, that
Yeah.
you won't see much of that on our website. We're mostly talking about, this is a new economic model. It's a good deal for you if you're this kind of person. So I think that the eco aspect, it should be more of a economic sell. And the circularity part should be a check the box, like, oh wow, and they're also doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. That's amazing. That's kind of cinches the deal for me. But ultimately, maybe somebody will crush us by talking about how eco forward they are. But I personally am also skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
And Until we're selling used devices, I'm definitely not going to go pitch that we're eco-friendly, because right now we're selling brand new devices.
Sure.
when
But
we have new ones, when we have used ones that we're moving into
Mhm.
circulation, then I think it would be
do you
more genuine.
partner with refurbishers or recyclers? And is that a component of the upgraded system?
Our plan is to get the devices back, and whereas in the EU we never touched a device, I want us to do that in the US. I want us to be vertically integrated.
Mhm.
Um, but we won't have MacBooks coming back in for another year. So we're in the process of finding the right companies that have a large supply of used devices and being able to sell from their inventory.
Mhm.
There are a couple big companies that, if we're just talking about Apple products, they buy back the majority of the devices that people sell to Apple. If you
Mhm.
walk into an Apple store and you're like, how much will you give me for my used MacBook? There are 3 companies that are buying back all of those devices. One of
Mhm.
them owns more MacBooks at any given time in the world than any other country, than any other company. They control the supply of used MacBooks, and it gives them a lot of leverage to set the price of the MacBooks. We did sustainability reports that I thought when we were in Sweden, and we would buy back. We also ran the trade-in program for this large electronics retailer, so
Mhm.
we would buy back 100,000 devices a year and sell them to a big bulk buyer. We would help facilitate that, and we would put together reports to say, well, the carbon offset by putting these used devices back into circulation is X amount. The question is kind of hand wavy to me, because did the corporation really make that happen, or would it have happened anyway because they would have just sold them on Facebook Marketplace, or they would have handed them down? So I'm like, how much credit do they really get?
Yeah.
Maybe what you could say is, this is why it's really important that it moves efficiently from person to person. A device is that if it was going to be sitting in somebody's drawer for 3 months or sitting around not being used, that's a waste. That's the time that you want to shorten. You don't want the devices to be sitting while they still have value. And so by getting people on upgrade programs, we're hopefully decreasing that time. I don't really care if people upgrade with us like on the 2 year mark or any. We do rely on that for profitability of the company long term,
Yeah.
but I'm more interested in that the used device goes from this person to the next person in like a month or less, so that it's not just sitting around, because
Mhm.
as it sits around, it creates demand for brand new devices. It's not in the market, and when the market is not saturated, the used
Mhm.
market is not saturated, people can't find what they want in the used market, they go to the new. And so you just need all of those devices to be
Yeah.
listed and moved to the next person. And
Yeah.
I think that the best way to do that is to help facilitate it, to say, John, you have those, here's a list of all your devices. If you want to trade it in, here's a live value of what your portfolio is worth. Just click this button and I will send you a box. You
Mm.
won't get the same amount that you're going to get by selling it on Facebook Marketplace. It's going to be $50 less, or it's going to be $75 less.
Mhm.
But that's because I had to ship you a box, and I'm going to take it and clean it up, and
Yeah.
you're not going to have to talk to somebody on Facebook Marketplace. Right. But you want those things to move quickly.
Completely.
And that's the same for computers, and it's the same for a used desk. You don't want it sitting around. So the easier, it's great to start with devices because they are very light. You can ship them, you can send them around so that supply meets demand around the US or even around the world. The more things we can do that with, the better. The used car market is such a great, efficient, it's not super efficient, but it's probably more efficient than the electronics market. That's a great model for what I would want to see the consumer electronics model look like.
Can we go back to the topic, the thing you brought up about joining a founding team with Upgraded? How did that come about? What are the skill sets that John is bringing to the table as a founder with the team?
I was a friend of a friend of somebody that I knew from China, started Upgraded a few months before I joined. And it was the same vision. The Apple iPhone upgrade program was successful in the US in 2015. It was 2016. We're going to take that model and give it to all other electronics retailers to go and begin selling that way. The two guys that started it both had a finance background, and I have a building background. I wouldn't say that I would want to call myself a CTO, but I know how to assemble teams to build things, and I can build things badly myself. And so I joined them. They had just gotten into Y Combinator, and I joined them a week before they started the YC, the program, the batch. And over the course of the next year, we got this gig or this contract with Apple in Sweden, and I moved to Sweden to help build everything, or at least I hung out in an Apple store from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. watching how they did everything so that I could convey back to the development team what to build. And I developed a big relationship with the folks at Apple Sweden. And both of the other I was originally not the CEO, and I became that maybe 6 months. I became the CEO 6 months in, and went from being first a contractor to 5% equity to 10% equity to, okay, you're just even, because we're going to work on this. We're all the same. We're going to work on this for a long time. So I guess assembling teams, building teams, developing trust with people. Probably I feel like I am very transparent and kind of say what I feel, and I try to do that purposefully so that my poker face is, you should trust what I'm going to do what I'm going to say.
No, without a question of doubt. I mean, in this just this hour conversation, I feel that from you. So it sounds like also managing people was second nature to you, or you already had a lot of experience in that, so you kind of brought that to the table.
I had a lot of experience assembling teams that were maybe 15 people or less. And Upgraded has actually never been more than 15 people. And I certainly wonder if that's my fault, if we weren't able to get any bigger in Europe, because I have a hard cap at 15. I'm excited to find out in the US as we continue to grow. We'll certainly be more than that if we can continue even close to the path that we're on today. But assembling teams of generalists that work together well. I am not a fan of posting a job online, receiving 100 applications, interviewing 20, and picking one person. I would rather be out in the community where we are working and going to run clubs or cycling clubs and meeting people that I really am fond of, that are 80% there, and trying to get them to join the company.
Mm.
because I can see them as, I have a seat that we need to fill. We need somebody with this capability. I would love to keep hanging out with that person. If they are in the realm of being able to do it, I would rather bring them in. At this
Mm.
stage, we need people at the sub 15 person level. You need people that have low ego, in the sense that they're willing to be generalists. They're not only doing one thing,
Mm-hmm.
and that you want to hang out with, that you want to be able to
Spend time with. Yeah.
talk to in the evening, talk to on the weekends.
That makes total sense. To that point, what advice would you give to a potential founder or an actual founder of a company that's building a network or a platform that connects a lot of what advice would you give to a founder who's building a network similar to Upgraded or any sort of tech-enabled platform, from your own experience?
I would think about, especially if they're building within circular economy,
Mm-hmm.
I would think about, what does the customer want? Y Combinator is famous for saying, make something people want. And if you're building something people want when you put it out there and it starts to spread, other people tell their friends about it. I would think about that first, and think about the environmental impact that you can have second. Because if you want to build something that is going to have a big impact, which is what differentiates a startup from a small business. If you want to have something that can grow exponentially, then you need demand. You need people to experience it and say, I want more. And I want to tell my friend that this is really cool. And so start with that and build in the sustainable practices around your business or inside of that model. And make sure that your model includes making money, because it has to be sustainable. I'm not against, kind of capping. If you wanted to cap your profits at 15% or something like that and say, we're going to reinvest everything else, or even we're going to give it away or something, but you can't be. I have been on panels with sustainability entrepreneurs, and I'm like, okay, you're going to build a company that's going to be very small, and you have a great dream for impact, but you don't have a great dream for distribution or the way the world should work when your product is at scale.
Mm-hmm.
What is how does the world work today? This is like the first few slides of any deck. How does the world work today, and how does it work when your product is at scale? What is the difference? For Upgraded, it's today everybody buys laptops cash. We think everybody should finance them, and we think that they should pay monthly for them, so that they are in a loop. They are somebody. This is kind of like, somebody says, we will buy that back from you whenever you want. Just let us know. If they're paying monthly for it, there's an easy way to get them into that kind of routine.
Interesting. That's fair enough. No, that's great advice. And I really love the distinction you make between a startup and a small business. I think that's something that, more people should be aware of, because we use these terms interchangeably, but that's a really good point.
Yeah. You're trying to grow. If you can grow 20% a month over month, you're building a startup.
Yeah.
If you're growing, last month we had 5 users. Now we have five. I don't know. 5 is a low number. Now, last month we had 100. Now we have 105. That is not fast enough, and you're probably doing something that is not going to scale.
Yeah.
That is not going to scale really broadly.
John, what does success look like to you both personally and professionally with Upgraded and beyond in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think there's an opportunity, whether it's us or somebody else, to build what I think of as the next great American consumer electronics retailer. Somebody is going to build the next iteration. It doesn't even have to be compared to, but somebody's going to build the next iteration of Best Buy. Best Buy is going to go the way of Circuit City and Radio Shack, and there's going to be something new. And Best Buy does $45 billion in sales. So I will gladly take $1 billion of that over to Upgraded. I think there is no reason why a company like Upgraded isn't doing $500 million in sales in the next 5 years. Does it look like Best Buy? No, I think that the future of retail looks more like a SaaS offering. It looks more like something you log into, you see all your devices, and you can see the value of them. You can take action on each one. You can add insurance, remove insurance. You can click ship this one to Sarah, click sell this one on the marketplace, sell this one to Upgraded. It is a tool that in the world of AI that helps you live your life more efficiently. It is not a retail store that you walk into and you get pushed to buy something. Volume every month, blah, blah. It's not that. And that's what I think have a really cool opportunity to, us and others have the opportunity to build that new iteration, the next great American consumer electronics retailer, and then expand it outside the US.
I love it. Well, John, I appreciate you for this conversation. I want to acknowledge you that you're on that path to that new future state that you just discussed, and obviously Upgraded is a really unique business model that I encourage everyone to check out. I know that I'm dealing with my own issues with my MacBook and definitely considering an upgrade, and so that might be my path moving forward. And yeah, so I appreciate you for this, and this was a great conversation, so thank you for your time.
Thanks. Enjoyed talking to you.